Steven, our video, it's going to the moon.
We've never had a video do what that video did in 17 years, because longer than Frono's Photos has been around, I've posted, but we've never had a video skyrocket and go to the moon like that video did.
To infinity and beyond, for sure. Yeah, I have never seen views like that in the 13, 14 years that I've been working with you. Quite insane.
Yeah, we're talking about the video that I put up that says, "Why Everyone is Wrong. Artemis II versus Apollo's Earth Photos, 2026 versus 1972. I won't say that it was a throwaway video that we were making, but it was one of those videos like when I analyzed the presidential portraits or something. It's something like that where people were talking about this image. Now, we're going to dive deeper into the images in a second, and I'm not going to dive into the analytics right now of this video, but I will be diving into how many views it's got, how many subscribers it's added, what the estimated revenue has been brought in so far on this, because we've never seen numbers go to the moon like this on a video.
And speaking of numbers, if you're not following along, we hit basically 500,000 views in less than 24 hours. Pretty crazy.
Currently at 566,000 and still doing 3 or so thousand views an hour, which is far cry from what it was at the height of 43,000 views in an hour. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But the whole reason I made the video was because of the photos that were put up by NASA. For those that aren't aware of, or if you've been living under the freaking rock, I don't know what's happening, but the Artemis II mission took off like 7 days ago at this point and was on its way to the moon. And we also got photos that it got of Earth when it could get the full Earth in the image. And then yesterday or 2 days ago, well, yesterday they started releasing images, but 2 days ago they were live streaming as they were about to go around the moon. And we heard all of the discussions they were having, which made it seem like everything was about photography.
Yeah.
What settings, what camera, how to get the best shot. And that's pretty awesome to hear as a lover of photography.
Before Artemis II, when is the last time NASA sent humans into space? Like an actual moon mission?
We haven't had a moon mission since the late 70s.
Wow.
You know, since the last Apollo, I think it was Apollo 17.
Yeah, Apollo 17, 1972.
Basically, what I heard is like why they stopped sending people to the moon. They said people stopped caring. Whereas the first mission around the moon had like 600. It had like the entire planet watching.
I bet.
And by the end, it had less viewership than the Super Bowl would get, and so it just became something that they didn't do.
Rinse and repeat. I mean, how many times do you have to see the moon?
I know, but maybe if they just put a base on the moon back then or did something, it would have been, I don't know. You never know what scientific things would have come out of that. And I'm trying to tread lightly on where to go, is like you hear so much complaining about they spent this much money on the rocket. They did this. It was like the amount of money that NASA has in a budget is the same amount of money that the government spends in a day. Like they make up like less than 2% of a budget of some kind in the United States. So they are really playing with peanuts when they have to go and do stuff. NASA is not what NASA used to be in terms of getting money from the government, but they still produce amazing results. Though they are flying a spacecraft which is basically outdated, and SpaceX is doing a better job with their Falcon Heavy and their future massive rocket. That gets into a whole political thing. I'm not political, like politics, but the politics of a government organization. I remember in high school that a teacher, we had this writing class, and he's like, you got to write a report on something you love and you really are into. And he warned us. He said, if you report on something and you do a deep dive, you might find you're not happy with the results that you find. And I was like, I think that the space shuttle program was the greatest thing ever because they're able to go back into space and then, we didn't have the internet yet.
Meanwhile, you find out it was all filmed in a Hollywood studio back in 1969.
We didn't have the modern internet of information. And through the digging that I found, I started to understand that the space shuttle program did not meet the objectives that it was supposed to meet in terms of being able to go up and reuse the ship over and over at a quicker pace. It became years, and I ended up going down the wrong thing. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is because the SLS was the Space Launch System was, I believe something that George W. Bush put into play, and we're talking over 26 years ago at this point, about 20 some years ago. So they're using outdated shit. Anyway, let's talk about the photos, Stephen.
I do want to say before we move on to the photos, the SpaceX launch, the broadcast of the launch, the camera angles, everything, the clarity, so much better than NASA's. I mean, did you actually watch the launch live?
Yeah, I was on my phone at Passover dinner.
They missed the actual part where it lifts off the ground. It blacked out for a second, and all of a sudden it's in the air.
Call that a fail?
I call it a giant fail. And whoever was following along the rocket as it was going into the sky, you couldn't even see it. Like the camera angle wasn't right. The guy's like, it almost seems like someone was just hand holding a camera trying to follow along.
The thing is moving fast, and it is going on an arc, and it is hard to follow, though.
But again, SpaceX does it.
We should have technology where you literally touch the rocket and it tracks it the whole freaking way.
I thought they had those giant special broadcast cameras for the launch.
Well, they're satellites. They're not satellites. They're telescopes, basically, that follow. There's tracking, and I'm sure the amateur trackers did a better job. But you have to understand, you hear NASA and you think that they have the biggest budget in the world to hire everybody, and they don't. And I saw this firsthand when I was at the NASA Artemis launch the first time. Mm-hmm. The people that are working, that are doing the PR and the media and the social media are 20-somethings right out of college who aren't getting paid a lot of money to do what they're doing. So it's not like they're rocket scientists, all of them. So it's not like they have the money. And that's why when we get into the gear that's being used, that you will realize that it's not SpaceX. Look, the thing is, SpaceX is not a public company yet. They're going to file for their IPO shortly in June, but they are able to blow shit up and start over again. If NASA blows something up, they have to stop for years before they can put something back into space. And so they just have to get it right. And it's just not as easy to do. And I'm not saying you're going to put people's lives at risk. This had 4 astronauts' lives at risk. That's huge.
They just don't have the R&D funding that SpaceX has, the unlimited funds for the most part. But I am spoiled by the SpaceX broadcast launch for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, the first images that started to come back were the blue marble shot.
Yes.
Which in 1972, one of the Apollo missions took the blue marble photo, and it became one of the most famous photos in the history of photography. And then NASA posts this photo, and people start losing their shit in the negative way. Why does it look so much worse than the one that was taken in 1972?
It's the pollution. The Earth is failing.
It has nothing
dying.
to do with pollution. I mean, I looked at the image and I thought the same thing right off the bat. I'm like, why did they shoot this at 51,200 ISO with a D5? And then my buddy Matt was like, oh, that's because the sun is on the other side. And the photo was taken without the sun.
The dark side of the Earth.
So the other one was full sun. And he's like, you can actually see stars there without the other one, without the sun, because, it's not shooting into the light. And so the biggest thing, I was like, why are they using D5s? They have Z9 up there. Why are you using a D5?
Yeah, I mean, I even questioned, why not a D6? Why does it have to be a D5? I know that the D5
Did they make a D6?
Yeah.
They did, didn't they?
Yeah, that was the last DSLR I'm pretty sure Nikon made, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I had a D5. How quickly we forget? Well, I would say how quickly, except for it's a 10-year-old camera.
I know the D5 was tried and true and tested, and it works in that space environment. They know for a fact, so I'm assuming that's why. Also, the D5, from a low light standpoint, it is one of the best full frame cameras sensor-wise for low light. But These days, the sensors are so damn good in most of the cameras. I mean, we're talking like maybe a quarter stop difference in terms of full dynamic range and low light capability.
I will say the Z9 produces some super clean images, even from a 45 megapixel sensor.
We've seen it from these pictures too, like 20,000 ISO. Some of the other pictures were even higher.
Yeah, it would have been a better choice. Now, in the video that I made on YouTube, I was not trying to debate what camera should have been used or get into a whole photography, camera setting discussion and all of that. We have to first, I'll do that here, by the way. We have to understand that the astronauts, they're not photographers first, they're astronauts. They are literally trained in everything, including photography. They have people on the ground who are messaging them up with, over the comm systems, giving them support and answering questions. They are given the basics of what they need to do. And excuse me, as I get over the cold, they did a great job. There is no taking away from them from, what they've done. And the 51,200 was the right setting. Now, sorry, let me say, it wasn't the right setting. They were at f4. They could have been at 2.8 and dropped it down. But regardless.
Well, I'm looking at the metadata right now, and I mean, talk about darkness. They were shooting at a quarter second shutter speed. Again, 51,200 ISO at f4. I mean, you're talking about extreme darkness there.
I believe in a thing called love.
The darkness.
Just listen to the rhythm of my heart.
I mean, you're taking a picture of black for the most part, and the camera is using its gain settings internally to try and make something out of nothing. And that is why it looks like Swiss cheese at 51,200. But yes, you're right. You could have cut it in half at 2.8 or even another half at f2.
If you shot that at any, it doesn't matter when the Earth was, 5,000-6,000 miles away. You could shoot it at any aperture and it's going to be in focus. I was going to say,
it could be 0.1,
right?
If that's even possible.
It could have been 0.95 with the Noctilux. Talk about a waste of weight and space if they took that into space.
Yep.
I was going to say that I was surprised that it actually found something to focus on. Oh, it's not very hard to focus in space.
Well, but again, you're shooting like darkness.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised there was enough contrast there. The D5 is probably one of those cameras that goes down to like -6 EV. But again, that's rated for like a 1.2 aperture wide open lens, not an f4 lens. And speaking of f4, I bet you when they were all taught how to use these cameras, they were probably like f4 or more, unless you're inside the cabin or something.
I mean, that's a 2.8, the 14 to 24 2.8.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying they probably said stop down to like f4 if you're shooting the moon or, the Earth or whatever it may be. But it's so damn far away, it doesn't matter.
No, at that point, it doesn't matter. And autofocus in space for this stuff doesn't matter either.
But looking at the metadata, I will give them credit where credit is due. Almost every single photo was taken full manual. I mean, we have auto white balance. I think that's really the only thing that's auto. I think on occasion I saw exposure comp with like a +2 EV value, but
yeah, that had to be an accident.
But for the most part, everything was shot manual.
I can't say that's an accident because everything that NASA does is thought out and done by spec. I did find it funny, though. This is a side note that when I saw a clip of the female astronaut ejecting the battery from the camera, and it shot all the way across the module because the spring, it popped out and there's zero gravity, so it just went shooting across.
I had a funny clip that I was going to insert into that the second video that we did, where Christina, I believe is her name, she was trying to ask NASA where to put the lens caps. She's like, where should I stow these lens caps? I don't know where to put them.
Well, you know where they go. You put them in a pocket. That's where you always remember, back right pocket. For me, back right pocket every time. So anyway, that's a photo that was first sent to everybody, and it caused a shitstorm. And so I decided to make the video talking about the differences and saying it's literally night and day. And that video freaking went to the moon in terms of specs. Analytics. Should I get to that now, Stephen?
Yeah.
And then we'll get back to the photo part, because this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about the NASA mission. We're going to get to what cameras would we have taken up if we had the opportunity to go and do something similar, because it's not about Nikon, it's not about Canon, it's not about Sony, it's about the right tool for the job. And they used the right tool because that is the only tool they had, and they are also there, and I am not. So
lens-wise, I don't know about that.
The
But we'll talk about that later.
No, the 35-2 does. I didn't even know that was a lens, to be honest with you. All right, so let's get into some of these analytics, or as Steven likes to call them, analytics. The video, I'm sitting there on the sofa after Born to Bowl. Born to Bowl finishes. It's 9:40. So
Plug.
it's not a plug. 10 minutes after Born to Bowl. Do you want to get into the plug right now, Steven? Plug.
No.
Boot camp. Bit.ly /
Come on,
May
just
30
keep going.
Fro.
Keep going.
Bit.ly / May 30 Fro.
Squirrel.
If you do sign up, and let me just get to it. If you do sign up, and you signed up from listening to this podcast, when you get the email that you have to email in, if you write in there sphincter butter, you will get a free signed print of your choice. I'm just doing that for see who signs up if someone signs up from the podcast. So from the Frochive, you can pick any image. Again, that special code after you buy a ticket and send an email back is sphincter butter.
God. We don't do dumb comedy here. Definitely not.
Sphincter butter sounds like a very NASA thing, Steven. Have you checked the sphincter butter today? Anyway, I was sitting on the sofa. It's 9:40, and it hit 129,000 views, and I sent you a screen grab. And I said, yeah, we've never seen this before, and it took 4 spikes up. Normally, we see a bump.
Well, and before we saw that giant spike, the first initial spike at least, it was like a 6 of 10 video, not doing great as I expected. I assumed it was more like a burner video. Hey, let's get like 30, 40,000 views maybe out of it. What did I spend? Like 3 hours editing it, if that. It was a very quick, like, let's just turn it around, get it out. It's topical.
Yeah, just to inform people on my thoughts and some of the facts.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point.
I did not expect it to do what it did.
No, I never expect it. And you also didn't see me celebrating. I was just more dumbfounded that it's been in 17 years, I never had a video skyrocket and go to the moon ever. Never, ever have I seen 43,000 views in an hour. And then, of course, my brain being my brain goes, well, MKBHD probably gets twice as many normally on every video.
Can't celebrate your own victories. Always have to compare yourself.
No, and Mr. Beast is probably doing like 1 million views an hour or less, or more, which is insane. Of course, you can't compare to those people, but when you
do.
Yeah, well, when they're used to getting that stuff, it becomes second nature. So when we get 100,000 views, we're like, yeah, that's actually very good for us. So if we see 50, we're like, yeah, that's about right. Not in an hour, though.
And to put that into perspective, we normally see on a good video, 2,500 an hour, 3,000 maybe?
Well, when it starts out, you get 5, 6, 7,000 maybe.
But continuous.
Oh, yeah, not continuous. Yeah, I mean, this was getting shot into the ether. So let me explain what I think happened. And it's not something you can replicate. It's not something you can copy and try to do again. The key is just do you. You have an idea for a video, you do it. You just put the content into the world. Now you do it smartly. Now this was already like 2 days after, because I filmed it on a Sunday. I filmed it on Easter, right? Maybe Jesus was behind me and like, Jesus helps your video go to the moon. He has risen. Our video has risen, Steven.
Come to the right side of religion, my little Jewish friend.
Fuck that. He never said. He is like, I am a Jew. Stay away. They crucified me. I'm going to rise like your video. So I wanted to just make a video to inform people, to share my knowledge. I did some research. I, practiced a little bit, and then I filmed the video, and we came up with a good thumbnail. I came up with a good thumbnail. I did use ChatGPT to make the 2026.
It's very obvious.
Well, I needed it to help me make it worked, though. I needed something that just wasn't basic shitty font that I normally use.
Yeah, I didn't mind it, but I could tell right away that it was definitely ChatGPT, mainly because I know your Photoshop skills are a little limiting.
Yeah, but you wouldn't make this. You wouldn't be able to illustrate that yourself either.
It would just take me a long time for sure. Not 5 seconds that ChatGPT could do.
Yeah, no, I did that 2026 to 1972. Now I cut out the Earths. So I put them there. I did cut myself out in the photo and put it on front of a starry background. That was generative AI just to put the stars in there because whatever. Anyway, so the title that I came up with is Why Everyone is Wrong. Artemis II, I already read the title earlier. And what I think happens is it was the hottest thing happening right then and there. They were live streaming to millions of people, and it's possible that our video then got recommended to these people that are watching NASA for long amount of times.
But even the NASA live streams didn't even have that many views, or the recap videos, I should say.
Well,
the highlight videos.
Yeah, but their live stream had almost 1 million people concurrently on there.
I would just expect that their highlight videos would have easily 1 million views, but they were like 100,000 maybe.
I think what might have happened, another thing that might have happened is if someone spent an hour or two watching the NASA missions, or over the past couple of days has looked at a lot of space stuff, that's telling the algorithm that space is important. And then when the video started to do well, meaning it was getting a lot of watch time, people were clicking it and staying and watching. That's letting YouTube know that this is good. We should show it to more people. But never did I think it would be 569,000 views.
I think I was telling you that night, I'm like, we're going to wake up tomorrow to 500,000 views probably. And I think it was like 350.
Yeah, like 320 something. And it just keeps going. And it's still about 3,000 every hour.
It's just the trifecta at the end of the day. Like, perfect title, perfect thumbnail, great timing, super topical subject, obviously. And it just worked out in our favor. For once, it finally did.
What about my sexy hair, Steven?
Well, it was all the hair. Take it all back. It was all the hair.
So I want to go through some of these other analytics just because very few people ever share the behind the scenes of the analytics just to get the numbers. Now, YouTube tells us this, nice, exclamation point. This video is appealing to a wider audience, contributing to 12 times more views than usual.
Yeah, no shit.
Our average views are like 50,000. So it's like, or maybe it's even less than that, but I don't know. So it's at 569,007. 569.7 thousand views, which is 521,800 more than usual. The watch time shows us in watch time in hours is 40,000, and normally, that's 36,000 more than normal. It's added 2,100 subscribers to the channel.
Wow.
So we normally get about 2,000 subscribers a month now.
We normally lose subscribers.
Only when I wear a specific t-shirt or necklace and people are little bitches. So there's that. And then, of course, there's the revenue. But I'm going to save the revenue for a few minutes later because it's not fully updated. It's only updated for, it says 129,000 potential views that could be paid. So I think it's probably going to be double or 2.5 times the number that is here. Let's move on to reach because there's something in there that was fascinating. Google search accounted for 38.9% of the external sites that drove traffic. So people probably searching Artemis photos or Earth photos.
Well, I was telling you that I was searching Artemis II photos and your video would come up like immediately as the top search result, which I've never really seen before.
That's interesting.
If you look a little farther down in the reach section, it says content suggesting this video. NASA's Artemis II crew flies around the moon, the official broadcast.
Oh, yeah, see? That's what happened.
That is the top suggested video that people are watching this from. And then, right below that, it's the live mission coverage. Yeah, so it's basically being suggested, like you said.
On NASA's videos. That was me just guessing that, just from experience, and here's the facts telling us that.
But it's saying it's only 7% of the total traffic is coming from those suggested videos.
Yeah.
Most of it is coming from the home screen and browse features. So, when you end a video and a video pops up suggesting the next video like that, or just people on their home screen and having recommended videos.
YouTube recommendations, which is if you can get into the recommendations feed, that's what matters. 88.6% of the views came from YouTube recommendations.
Yep.
YouTube home, 81.2% came from YouTube home, which means when you go to your home screen, you go to youtube.com, it put this video in front of you to watch. So 505,000 views from YouTube recommendations. And one that's interesting is up next, accounted for 7.4%. That's 42,200 views. Next up is like you finished watching the live stream from NASA or somebody else's video. It shows our video, and then our video then comes up next.
Yeah, that's the one we were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, so that's crazy. Average view time is 4 minutes and 16 seconds, which is 38.2%, which is slightly lower than we normally get, but that's still pretty good.
And the click-through rate, the CTR was a little lower too, right?
Yeah, well, the more impressions, the lower the rate, but with so many people watching. So if you get 500,000 views, and people are watching and engaging, YouTube instantly is like, this is good. Let's show this to more people. We could sell more ads against this. And that's what happens.
That's why I never care about the CTR metric. I just feel like it's always all over the place, never equates to actual views half the time.
Well, it does though, because if your click-through rate is super low at the beginning, that means people aren't clicking on the video when it's served to them. And that's telling YouTube that your video is dead.
Yeah, but I've seen videos do nothing in the first few hours and then skyrocket after.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even the video we just put out last night, which is the second NASA video, that one's still doing decent, and it did nothing overnight, and now it's starting to pop up. Because the same thing is happening. It's getting suggested, people are searching for it, all the above.
Well, that was one of the debates is should we have waited to put it up? But I don't know. We don't need to even talk about that.
Yeah.
Audience. This is the metric I found to be super interesting. Device type. Because it splits between TV, computer, mobile phones, and tablets. Did you look at these metrics? Are you looking at them right now?
I'm looking at them right now.
So I can't test you and think which one is the highest?
Sorry, I'm following along. I'm trying to.
Yeah, the lowest one, as expected these days, is a tablet. The second lowest, which is actually interesting, is mobile phone.
That blows my mind.
20%. Computer, 21.4%, but making up 52.6% of viewership was TV.
Wow.
People watching on their TV. This has been something that has changed over the years. It was computer. Then mobile flipped it and took more away from the computer. Now the TV is taking both because people are using YouTube as if it's Netflix or a streaming network. That's why when I showed you those good golf videos the other day that are 3 hours long, it's because people are using it as entertainment and sitting and watching this stuff on their couches.
I wonder if it's just that particular video and that particular type of audience, that demographic watching a space launch and wanting to know more about space. I'm not sure. Looking at other videos that we've done, most of the number one device type is either the computer or the mobile phone.
Yeah.
Case in point, the latest fix that we did, the April Fool's fix, that one, the computer is number one at 32%. Mobile phone is second at 31.8%, basically the same. And the TV is third at 25%.
Well, that's almost parity.
It's almost split across the board, yeah.
That's pretty good. But here, I might have an answer to why this is the case on this one. It's age and gender. So let's look at age and gender. We generally have a very large female audience of 100%. Only women watch. I'm kidding. Women don't only watch. We usually have like 3%. But we got 7.5% are female, 92.3% are male, 0.3% are Subaru drivers. I haven't said that in a while. I saw 2 Subaru drivers on the subway yesterday, Steven, and I thought of you. Actually, I thought of Dan. But I was like, yeah, they drive Subarus. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt. Breakdown of age. So 13 to 17 only accounted for 1.3%. 18 to 24, 1.8%. 24 to 34 was 10.1%. 35 to 44 were over 20%. 45 to 54 is 25.9%. Almost 26% of the viewers were between 45 and, I guess that's my demographic. Holy shit, because I'm 45. And then 55 to 64, 24%. And 65 plus is 16.5%.
Yeah.
It's everybody basically over 35.
Older people that are used to watching content on a giant TV, basically.
But that's good.
I'm not mad about it. I'm looking at other videos now, and it pretty much is split almost across the board the same way, like I read earlier, like 32, 33% between phone and computer, and then that TV is always around that 20 to 25%. But it's always in third for the most part. Unless some of our long form content, the really long stuff, the TV tends to tick a little higher.
Take a look at the Paris vlog and Goodbye Canon, and then do that while I talk about these other analytics.
Well, I'm looking at it right now, actually, now that you bring it up. And computer is number one there at 37%.
It's a longer video.
Computer is, not TV.
See, Jared wasn't fucking listening. His brain heard computer and thought, yeah, he's saying TV. Why I failed in fucking school all the time, because I heard you say it and I think I hear what I wanted to hear and I failed.
Yeah, computer is first, but TV is second at 31%, followed by mobile phone at 20%. So it's flipped there.
Okay. It's not bad.
So long form content, I think, usually is watched on the TV. But I will say those two videos that we put out are both only like 12, 15 minutes long. They're not really long form, in my opinion, enough to turn on my TV and watch it directly and solely on there.
Yeah.
Now, me personally, I watch 99.9% of YouTube on my phone. And honestly, it's probably most of it is spent on the toilet or something. When I get time, which is rare these days.
You shouldn't be on the toilet for that long. You need a Toto.
Well, that's why I'm watching like 5-minute videos and sped up in 2x speed. I'm rarely watching. I always tell you like less is better, because I'm never watching like a over 10-minute video these days, just because my life right now, where I'm at, I don't have much free time. That's not saying everyone's like that. I just know personally, I don't have the time to watch really long form content on YouTube. I barely can catch up on my normal shows and movies and stuff like that these days.
Movies. Quit movies and you'll be fine.
I love movies. I do. I love watching a good movie than a YouTube video, for example. Unless it's a lawn video. That's a different story, especially this time of year.
I got time for lawn videos.
But yeah, TV-wise, never ever watch YouTube personally, unless it's for my daughter, like Miss Rachel, obviously. That was all YouTube. But now she's on Netflix, so I would fire up Netflix and watch it on there instead.
That's terrible. Anyway, watch time from subscribers. This is interesting. Subscribers, only 18% of subscribers accounted for the watch time.
Subscribers are dead.
Well, subscribers don't matter as much as they used to, but not subscribed were 82% of the people that watched the video accounting to watch time. Now, in terms of geographics, the United States accounted for 35.3%, with Canada at 4%, followed by United Kingdom at 3.1%, Australia at 2.2%, Germany coming up at 0.9%. 0.9%.
Oh, God.
And now let's get to the revenue, because I know people want to hear about revenue. So this video has accounted for, let's see, CPM stands for cost per 1,000 clicks. $17.75 CPM is pretty good. I would like to see a 30 or 40% CPM. That would be amazing. But in terms of watch page ads, it's saying $1,342.41. And that is based off of, it says 121,997 estimated monetized playbacks. So what a monetized playback means is a video where an ad actually ran. You do not see ads on every single video. It is all based off of your viewing. If you just watched a lawn care ad or Miss Rachel well, Miss Rachel shouldn't have ads because it's for kids, but a lawn care video, if an ad ran in a certain amount of time and you go and watch one of my videos, you might not see an ad pop up. That's just the nature of how YouTube works. So it's based off of almost 122,000 monetized playbacks, and also includes people that are YouTube Red. There is a percentage formula that you get paid advertising for that, but the majority are just the ads running. Now, that is just for the for April 5th to April 6th, or April 6th to April 7th. We are still waiting for the rest of the metrics to catch up. It's possible we have another 300 or could be 350,000 possible monetizable views, which means this video could make close to $5,000 maybe. So I will share the analytics. I was sharing as the stuff was going, to the moon as it was happening, and I will keep following up and tell you what happens as the number goes up, because I want to see where it goes, because we've never had a video do this.
Have you seen, by the way, speaking of ad revenue, the new ads that pop up now on, at least on the mobile phone, in like the bottom left corner, and you have to dismiss them to get them off the screen?
No.
When watching a YouTube video, it's very annoying.
That
YouTube
sounds
just
terrible.
started that up recently, and I can't stand it. because it doesn't just pop up and you can skip it or something like that. It pops up and stays popped up until you dismiss it.
I can see the comments now. Why don't you pay for YouTube Red?
It's basically like a banner ad.
You don't pay for YouTube Red?
I do not know.
Me either. I make all this money from YouTube and I don't pay the $10 or whatever it is a month to have YouTube Red.
I honestly don't really mind the ads that much. I'm just so used to it now. I mean, it's still better than watching 5 minutes of ads on traditional cable TV.
It also doesn't get away from the baked-in ads that we do. So you can pay this money, but you're not getting away from our preset plugs. Well, let's shift gears back to the pictures, because the real pictures from the Artemis mission really occurred when the capsule was approaching the moon, but and then going around the moon. So going further than any other humans have ever gone before, and roughly, I believe they said that they were roughly 4,000 miles away from the moon when the photos were being taken.
Mind-blowing. It seems like they're so much closer. Now, I think Apollo 8 was way closer to the moon's surface.
60 to 70 miles.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They were much closer. So this is where the debate starts to happen with the cameras they took up, the streaming video that was coming back from the GoPros that were mounted.
Terrible.
GoPro Hero 4s, by the way.
What are they on now? 10?
12? 13?
Oh.
I think they're on 13. Right?
I don't get it. Why? Why, NASA? Why?
Because NASA doesn't have a lot of money. I remember when I was in the Orion capsule, because when I was at NASA, I got to go in the freaking capsule and they were setting up the GoPros, right? So they have a test capsule to test everything. They run the wires because everything's redundant. They check everything. They have to check everything for weight because every ounce matters when you're trying to launch a payload. You have to meet a certain threshold or keep it under a certain area, because if you don't and you're overweight or something, you're not going to make it through the atmosphere or off the pad. I don't know. I'm not a
Those
rocket
GoPros,
scientist.
by the way, are 12 years old.
Yeah.
Released
and they were
in
shitty
2014.
then. They were shitty then and they're shitty now.
Yeah.
And that's where the small sensor discussion comes into play. That's where reaching for the iPhones. Now, what I hope these astronauts get to do when they land, I hope that they took personal photos, against when they were done taking real photos, because I do call real cameras real photos. I hope that Apple comes knocking and pays them for backgrounds, pays them to make a commercial if they're allowed to get paid to do it. I would love to see them get paid for that because, they're on a government salary I'm sure they get paid well as astronauts these days, but I would be really curious to see if they could get paid for that.
Well, did you see that they actually took a real picture, quote unquote, with the D5 and a 14-24 after you kind of, put them to shame about taking a selfie with the iPhone? It just came out last night.
There is a good possibility that they watched the video on the freaking Artemis. I did get a text from an unnamed source at NASA, I will not name them, who watched the videos, and they are very high up in the NASA organization. It is possible, Stephen. I will take credit.
I mean, someone might have mentioned it at NASA for them to do it, but it's not like the astronauts were watching the video all the way in space.
Well, they could because they have a laser connection. People don't know that they're using lasers to beam back all the data, terabytes a second.
Yeah, so they took, let me see, it was taken on April 7th, 2026. So after that video was released.
Put that in the chat. I want to see it.
Here, it's right here. Here's one of them.
Because I want to see this. I haven't seen what you're talking about. Let's see.
There's 4 total pictures, and they did exactly what you mentioned and suggested. They basically floated the 14-24, put a timer on, and said cheese.
It's really bright in there.
Yeah, it almost looks like they used a flash.
It almost looks like they used a flash.
Wait, let me see. They did.
They had to use a flash because look at the shadows on the wall.
They did. Flash fired. Yep. I'm looking at the EXIF data now.
So personally, guys, let me send this back to you. Do not use the flash. Use the natural light coming from the fucking moon that's popping in there. That's what I would have done because it looks real. When you start popping this flash that's just a straight on-camera flash, it's not going to look good. So NASA, guys, if you're listening, could you please redo it? Turn the camera back around. Use the natural light that you have. It's going to look so much better. On-camera flash just looks so fake and so amateurish. It's not even funny.
I'm very surprised, coming back to that weight conversation and how much you can bring payload-wise. that they would add a flash to the manifest. I mean, that takes up a decent amount of weight for something that's really not needed.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather throw another lens in there, or even two. Flashes weigh a good amount.
Anyway, they listened to me, which is great. They probably studied my videos. They probably studied before they went up my videos. But what was really cool the other day, sitting here, just listening to the communications of them saying, well, they kept saying long lens, which annoys the piss out of me. Just call it the zoom lens. But they call it the long lens. That's their terminology for the 80 to 400, which is honestly a piece of shit.
Discontinued, discontinued for quite a while.
Yeah, because it's an F mount. It's an ED lens. Now, it was a great lens back in the day because 80 to 400, what a range. What's it, 4.5 to 5.6?
Something like that.
It's not actually a bad aperture for that lens. It's not a bad lens, but you might look. You remember, they're shooting through glass, and this is space glass, mind you. It's probably super thick. Not only are they doing that, but when you zoom out to 400 with that lens, you are not getting the sharpest images that you would ever get from a different type of 400 millimeter. But obviously they weighed the pros and cons, no pun intended, of taking up an 80 to 400 zoom long lens versus other prime lenses.
Well, and I looked at a lot of the metadata for most of the photos that came in, and I was wondering, are they shooting mostly on the long end or mostly on the wide end? And it's kind of all over the place. So they really do need a decent, versatile zoom lens like this. I mean, there were many photos taken at 80, and I would say more photos were taken on the wide end than the long end.
I will say that 80 shot, my favorite picture, was done
80.
at 80 millimeters.
Yep.
I believe it was probably done at the same time they did the other. People corrected me and said it was the Earth.
It's the Earth set. It's
Earth
the Earth
set, whatever.
setting, not rising. So we called it the Earth rise because it mimics the same Earth rise photo from back in the day.
That's
Everyone's
what we're
correcting
talking about.
Yeah.
Suck my balls.
Well, real quick, that's one thing I learned from the comment section. Also, that it's not called the dark side of the moon. It's the far side of the moon. And there are a lot of flat earthers out there.
Oh, I stopped reading comments because generally if you have a video go viral, you're getting out of your sphere of influence. So the people that are commenting don't have any stake in you, so they'll just say whatever they want.
The last thing I learned was that it's impossible to photograph the moon from that angle on Earth because you had mentioned it's just a picture of the moon. You can take it from Earth just like any other photo of the moon, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, technically you can't because the moon rotates in sync with its orbit. So that same side is always facing us, not the one that they shot.
That wasn't what I was talking about.
I know what you were talking
I
about.
was talking about literally the moon.
I just love people correcting us for like little things like that.
Yeah. So anyway, what I was saying is the shot that was done at 80 millimeters was very similar to the Earth set. It was the same framing, but one was at 400 and one was at 80. And the one at 80, the one I'm talking about is you've got the moon taking up like 3/4 of the frame. So it's perfectly symmetrical.
Amazing.
You have total pitch blackness of certain parts of the far side of the moon. And then you have the gradation as it gets brighter and brighter near the top. And then you have Earth setting over the left shoulder. That image was fucking impressive to me. Like, insane.
It really was. And again, looking at the metadata, like I kept thinking like they could have brought a better lens, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it was between like 80 and 200 mil, like more on that wide side. I thought like maybe a 180 to 400, but again, most of it was like 80 to 200, if that. So they would have lost all of those images. They would have never been able to take that photo specifically because they only had a 14 to 24 2.8 F mount along with the 35 f2D, an AFD lens from back in the day that doesn't even focus when it's adapted to a Z9.
That's a terrible lens.
So they had to manually focus all those shots, and most of the Z9 shots were taken with that lens.
Yeah.
Like, why not 35 1.8G? Yeah, it's a little more. It's 100 grams, I think, more. We're talking like maybe not even quarter pound, but still.
Yeah. I Googled this, I ChatGPT'd. It says the actual extra payload capacity inside Orion is tiny, about 100 kilograms or 220 pounds of additional payload beyond crew and systems.
Wow, that's really not much.
So,
it's an extra
beyond
person,
crew and
basically.
systems. Yeah, I mean, they need food, they need other stuff. So obviously, weight plays a role. Pretty sure they were shooting RAW. There's no reason they would be shooting JPEG. They have to be getting the raw data. And you said you saw it in the EXIF data somewhere?
So yeah, when I look at the EXIF data on Flickr, it specifically says preserved file name at the bottom of the metadata, and it reads the file name, and then it ends with the extension .nef. So I assume, I mean, that has to mean that it was shot raw and then converted in JPEG. Everything was edited in Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic 15.2.1 on a Windows machine. Your favorite.
Boo.
I just question, like, when they did edit these photos, are they using the Adobe standard profile? Are they using a Nikon camera matching profile? Why aren't they using NX Studio for proper color rendering?
No one wants NX Studio.
I'm just saying, like, when it really comes to proper color, you really should be using the manufacturers.
Hit it with Skittles. Just call it a day.
But, like, are they doing any major edits, or is it just like slap it on, do a couple tweaks, and export it? You obviously have to edit it if it's a RAW file. I'm just curious how they're editing it.
I just say release the RAW files and let us have a day
Release
with it.
the RAW files.
Which they should release the RAW files. It's government. We should be able to get access to that at some point. I'm sure I could request it from NASA and possibly get it at some point.
Back to the payload discussion, the other thing I questioned was the Z9 in the first place. Why not bring a Z8, which is nearly a pound lighter? And then they could have, on top of that, brought a different lens or two.
It's not maybe as rugged, smaller battery. So now you have to take up a different type of battery.
So I thought about the battery, but then I was assuming that they have tons of solar power up there that they can charge everything on. But I obviously don't know. I just know it's going to be much lighter with a Z8, and it's also weatherproof just as much for the most part as the Z9. Same exact guts internally.
The photos I was most disappointed in were the photos taken inside of the Orion. So either they used their cell phone to take a shitty picture, or they were using the 35 f2D to take random pictures of the people looking out of the portholes. I personally, if they weren't currently using the 14 to 24, because I don't know what I don't know. So I don't want to be like, they should have done this. I'm just saying that this is what, if they had the ability to do, maybe that's why they didn't. Maybe the 35 wasn't in use by one of the other people at the portholes, and they would have been able to use the 11 to 24. I would have liked an 11 to 24 in there to just do the wide shots to establish the scene with none of the lights on.
14
going
to 24.
with the natural lights. What did I say?
11 to 24.
Oh, 14. The 11 to 24 is f4. Sorry, I'm still in Canon world.
Yeah.
I meant the 12 to 24 from Nikon.
14 to 24.
What did I say? 12?
You said 12. That's a Sony.
That's a Sony. It's a 14 to 24 that I owned.
Yes.
Two versions of. It got so old that I replaced it because I was like, let me get a newer zoom just in case. But yeah, I would have used the 14 to 24 2.8. But I'm not in space. I'm not there.
The other thing I questioned was most of the images were taken with the D5. And I know that's more of a low light monster for sure.
That's what they were supposed to do on this mission.
Really?
Yeah, well, the mission was use the D5.
I know that Z9 was an afterthought pretty much. They had to fight to throw it on last minute.
Well, the Z9 was brought on because that's what they'll be using on the moon.
Yeah.
So, but that picture of the moon, holy Jesus God, done with the Z9, the solar eclipse.
Yep.
Holy Jesus God, does that look incredible?
And that, I think, was only 1600 ISO. That was one of the cleanest files that they sent back.
Beautiful. Just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Mind-blowing. If you're trying to follow along, if you haven't checked out any of the photos, you can simply just Google Artemis II photos, check out their Flickr stream, check out the actual NASA official government page. They have a stream there as well. Gives you all the metadata, gives you everything you need, full res files. You can download them, pixel peep, do whatever you want. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, let's transition into what would you have taken if you were going into space to take photos? Now, mind you, I'll be allowed to take more weight because I'm a svelte figure of 184 pounds of muscle. So I can trade off some of that muscle in exchange because muscle is less heavy than flubber.
What are you trying to say?
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about fat astronauts. You don't see them because it costs too much to put them into space.
That is true, yes.
And they wouldn't fit through the hatch.
I'm sure they're concerned about health issues, too, while in space. They need perfect specimens.
I can just think of Wally up in space. Hey, would you yank one off in space? What would that feel like? You think that feels any different in weightlessness?
Oh, my God. No comment.
No, I mean, shit, think about it. How would you do it?
You do realize this is like an open area, the Orion.
No, they have a bathroom.
Oh,
they have a
okay.
toilet this time.
That isn't working.
Right, not working. But wait, I'm trying to do the Silicon Valley thing.
Jesus.
Anyway, what would you take into space if you were tasked? Steven, you are the 4th astronaut going on the Artemis II mission to take photos around the moon. What are you taking and why?
See, I have a couple options just because some of them are theoretically sound good, but at the same time don't make sense because of the lens selections. So for example, like in a perfect world, I'd probably bring the GFX 100 Fuji, like the version 2 or the S version, just because that is close to medium format. I mean, it's kind of in between that full frame 35mm and an official medium format sensor. It's a low light monster. It's much better than it's rated like one of the highest on Photos to Photons website when it comes to like low light.
You
tests.
also don't really need to. I mean, the moon is really bright and the Earth is bright.
Yeah, but we've seen most of these images that are coming out are 20,000 ISO, 51,200, 40,000.
But they also shot a lot at f8.
Sure, but with medium format, you'd certainly be shooting at like f8 stop down for sure.
I just wouldn't even know where to focus. Do you focus on the moon or do you focus on the Earth?
And speaking of focus, I wouldn't really be concerned about it because it's just, giant object in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
The Fuji shouldn't have a problem with that because I know
Nothing should have a problem with
We've hit
that.
on focus in the past with that. But the issue is the longest lens that system has is 100 to 200. And in 35mm terms, that's about an 80 to 160 equivalent. So yeah, I know that was kind of the sweet spot for most of the images they took. There's no way you would get that compression with like the 400 that they took with the Nikon. Or I would do the Hasselblad X system, but there's only a 100mm lens available. That's the longest focal length they have on that system. So that's kind of out the window. Canon, I know, has a couple of those dedicated astro cameras, like the EOS RA, and I think there's another one too. I think what I would take at the end of the day would probably be one of the best sensors ever made, the Sony A7R5, with like a 100 to 400 or their 200 to 600, or maybe even go nuts and take the 400 to 800. All of those lenses are fairly light.
Can't take the 400 to 800.
I think
That's
the
a piece
400
of
to
shit.
800 is just, it's not a piece of shit. I just think it's too limiting.
That's overkill. That's unnecessary.
I wish it was like Canon, like the 200 to 800, but that's also kind of a shittier lens.
Yeah, I would never recommend that up in space either.
But I do think like the 80 to 400, that range seems to be the appropriate range. So maybe the Sony 100 to 400 makes sense.
Canon's got a 1 to 5.
Canon has a 1 to 5. The R5 II would be another option or something like that with the 1 to 5. Or you know what? How about the Nikon P1100?
Oh, yeah.
We shot the moon with that.
we shot Saturn with that thing.
Yeah, they could zoom in on us from Orion.
Yeah, so I'd like more resolution, personally.
And that's what I opted for too. Like all of those cameras that I just listed are super high res.
Like I would think I would take 2 systems. I know that gets complicated, but probably taking the Fuji GFX, or maybe you take up one of those 100 megapixel actual medium format sensors that NASA has. Who used to make it? The Leaf? Was it Leaf? What were those cameras? What was my NASA photo taken with?
Phase 1.
Yeah, the phase 1s. They don't exist anymore.
Well, like the IQ4 is one of the best sensors ever made.
Yeah. So I'm talking about like the biggest sensor to do that. So you don't need speed, right? You just need to be able to bang out a bunch of shots. You don't need the super speed. But that's for focusing on like Earth and the moon and those creatives things. On the flip side, I'm going to want a mirrorless camera with a bevy of some wide lenses. And like maybe the 14-1.4 inside the capsule, maybe something like that. 28 to 70 is probably not the right choice up there. That's too heavy and it's not the best range.
See, I think choosing a lens for inside the capsule would be like an afterthought for me. I would definitely be focusing more on like obviously shooting the moon itself and the Earth and all that.
And you know me, being the way that I am, I focus on the subjects photographing and doing their thing. So I would try to get cool astronaut portraits, and I would have, let's just say, I guess I'd have the 10 to 20, which is an f4, but I would want some 1.2 or 1.4 glass, maybe some VCM stuff just to give me some more creative freedom, like a 20-1.4 or a 35-1.4, and then call it a day. Maybe not the 35, maybe the 24-1.4 inside there, and just really focus on getting those cool shots. Now, I would have time to get those shots on the way back and on the way to, so, and then you could get more creative later on. But that's, something medium format, but then something versatile as well.
And speaking of medium format, I'm looking at the test charts from Photos to Photons, and they have their whole list of cameras in order from best to worst when it comes to maximum dynamic range. And that Phase 1 IQ4 is the top camera, that 150 megapixel sensor. And then right below that, we've got like the Hassies, the Fuji GFX 100s. The A7 IV is up there too, along with the A7R III. They're one of the only few 35 millimeter cameras that are almost matching medium format quality when it comes to dynamic range.
I don't know that the Sony would make it off the pad in one piece.
And then the R3 is right there, along with the R5 and the Leica M11, the D850
close.
From Nikon. But a lot of the
D850.
35 mil start to hit around that area.
Yeah. I don't think the Z9 is a bad choice. I think if we were forced to take a Z9, then I'd want a 14-24, the new Z lens. Damn, their lenses are so heavy though. The 50 1.2, the 35 1.2, those things are just massively, massively heavy. And yeah, the aperture doesn't matter that much out there, or really at all, other than controlling the amount of light coming in, because as you saw in the one Earth set photo that's taken at 400 millimeters, the moon is in as best focus as it's going to be at 400 with that lens, and Earth is basically in focus, and you're at f8. So it's just, and that's 260,000 miles away. So that just tells you that it doesn't really matter what the aperture was going to be.
I'm looking at the low light chart now for high ISO and what sensor is best for that. And surprisingly, the Sigma FP comes in at number 1 for 35 millimeter sensors, and the D5 is kind of right behind it. So the D5 is still up there in terms of like a low light champ. I think that's only like a 20 megapixel sensor, right?
I don't even remember what it was.
I think it's like 20.8 or something. And then the R3 is right behind that. But the M11 is up there. The Panasonic S1R
The
Mark
M11
II,
monochrome. That's the right camera to take.
the Pentax K1 II.
All right, enough.
And the A9 Mark III real quick is up there too.
Now, let me make something abundantly clear. The gear doesn't matter up there. All that matters are the photos that are coming back. That they're getting photos that you and
I mean, the gear kind of matters.
Yes, gear matters, of course. But I'm saying they are using what they could use at their disposal. And what they were able to capture are things that we wouldn't be able to capture because we aren't there. And we're never going to be astronauts to be flying around the moon. So would I do it? If I could be guaranteed to live, probably. If not, I don't know.
I think this is also amazing PR for Nikon. I'm surprised they haven't talked about it more or put out a lot of press releases about it, because I do feel like a lot of people are talking about Nikon right now.
Well, they're more talking about the Z9 or the D5 because they didn't really mention Nikon brand name at all when I listened to them talking.
It is very much the camera model name, yeah.
They kept the brand names out of it. And that, I don't know. And he's just guys, remember, NASA, government organization, they do not have huge budgets. So using 10-year-old cameras, because they know they worked in the past, so they expect them to work again. And then with the Z9, it's going to the moon. I remember a few years ago, they put out the budget, right? They bought all of these. Remember, they were buying all these Nikon cameras?
Yeah.
The other thing we didn't talk about were the ProGrade cards, right? Weren't the ProGrade cards supposed to be the cards they were using?
I'm not sure.
They put out that was part of this mission. That was the only approved card, was the ProGrade Iridium cards, were the approved cards of NASA to go on this mission.
It seemed like, by the way, they were getting a little confused about card organization up there. They kept referring to the cameras having a community card, which I assume was like a card that stayed in the camera. Both cameras have 2 card slots, and then they each seem to have their own individual cards,
which is weird,
that they would swap between cameras. And yeah, that just becomes very confusing, I'm sure.
And you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Not formatting to that specific camera.
Yeah. So I guess the community card was their safe card. And then again, they had all those individual cards and they would swap them per camera.
I mean, they could have set the cameras up with different banks, and in the banks, it would have the metadata for that person.
Yeah.
To put in. Or they hit the memo and be like, I'm taking pictures from this picture on. Well,
'cause
and
the metadata had no author or any copyright information, so none of that was set, which I'm a little surprised about.
it's free, Stephen, free.
I guess America owns those images.
America.
I also question too how much degradation we're getting quality-wise shooting through like those extra thick windows. I mean that piece of glass has to be so thick, and it's probably not the clearest window.
No.
If I had to guess.
Yeah, the glass is a thing, and that's why we heard them talking about the shroud, the shroud of Turon, and it's literally just like something goes over the entire frame. It has a hole in it. You put your lens through it, and we're not talking about a fleshlight, Stephen.
You said it, not
talking
me.
about. You thought it. You thought it.
It reminds me of like a dark bag, like your arm where it goes in. Like that's kind of what they had wrapped around the window.
The word is it cinches closed.
Cinches.
And that cinches around the lens. I think that mirrorless cameras would be better to shoot with for checking exposure. Everything is right in front of your eyeball. That would be much more efficient for shooting. I would be curious to see how many pictures they did take and, if they were filling cards or not. Because you're not going to fill a card. I mean, it depends. I mean, you could take a lot of pictures and then they're beaming them back. They're lasering them back. They could reformat the card.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, speaking of using an EVF versus optical viewfinder, like why they didn't use the Z9 more now that they had it up there. It was up there with them.
Because the mission called for the D5 and they stick with the mission.
But the Z9 is what the Artemis III is going to be using and every future mission after that.
Well, I guess if it actually happens, we'll see what actually happens. But what we should do is maybe now that the Artemis is coming back, maybe make a trip down to Orlando again and take you or take Austin and go do a video with John Kraus, the photographer guy who's working for the administrator, Jared Isaacman, and get like tours and do our thing. I've been there before. And so we should be able to get there and go set up meetings and really show you the behind the scenes of NASA.
We brought it up in the two videos, but you actually photographed the commander on the Artemis II, Reed Weissman, at the, was it NASA Johnson Space Center?
No, this one was in, yes, I think so. The one in Texas at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab.
Yeah. That is the picture of the astronaut. We did a whole video on it where you kind of recapped how you had 90 seconds to photograph.
You want to talk about that? That was one of the deciding factors.
Speaking
in
of
getting
Nikon,
away,
by the way,
that was one of the deciding reasons to get away from Nikon. I was using the Z7, and it could not focus on them walking towards me.
Yeah,
and you could see it in the video. It just couldn't do it. The colors extraordinary from that shoot. The focus, I was so lucky to get his eye coming out of the water. I was so lucky to be able to focus on him through the helmet. It was just a battle. It was one battle after another with the Nikon. I still haven't watched it, but it was one battle after another repeatedly. And that's why I had to get off that Nikon and stop using. But anyway, the moral of the story there is that was 2019. I am there photographing just random astronauts. I don't know that these guys are going to be going up, let's see, in 7 years. 7 years later that he ends up on the mission.
So much training. It really is so much training.
They see the thing with NASA is you rinse and you repeat every day. You go through and I'm not saying they do the same thing every day, but they practice thousands upon thousands of hours on everything so that when something occurs, you've done it so many times that you just react.
Second nature, yeah.
And you just do it.
Muscle memory. How much do you think they get paid, by the way?
Anywhere to $100,000 to $150,000, ChatGPT said.
Oh, not bad.
About 100 to 155,000 years for most astronauts. A very common typical salary is around 152,000. Full range depending on experience, roughly 104 to 160,000 for civilian astronauts. But not enough for them to buy 5 properties. 6. Oh, I didn't tell you about that last one.
Great. Can't wait.
No, I'm just kidding. But no, they are not making as much as you think, but they do it for the love of the game, and hopefully they get paid extra when they come back and can like monetize on this stuff with lunchboxes. I am still blown away by how big this was for photography.
Yeah.
Just the constant discussions of cameras and settings was awesome. And the images they captured are fantastic.
And I know that was pretty much the point of the mission. It's very similar to like the early Apollo missions where they were basically taking pictures of the moon for future missions. But I just didn't expect, that many people to be talking about photography with these missions.
Nope. Anything else you want to add, Stephen?
No, just if you haven't watched the videos, check them out. We put 2 separate videos up about the NASA photos, one being the blue marble similar photo, and then the other one being the similar photo to the Earthrise 1968 image.
And that's about it.
Both videos that I thought were going to be burner videos and only took a couple hours to put together, and thankfully they're both doing well. The one obviously is doing incredibly well.
It's funny. Stephen and I were talking about this, and I put Austin on the spot because Austin's like, "We should make more content like that." I'm like, "That's
I
not
wish
how
it was that
works."
easy. I wish.
We've been doing it 17 years. The videos you think are going to do great.
And we've tried it in the past. We've had videos pop and we've literally copied the title, thumbnail, content, everything around it, and it completely flopped the next time around.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, because this is such a hot topic, obviously, to the general public, the second video is still doing fairly well. Not obviously as well as the first one, but yeah, that makes sense. But like when it comes to making photography content, it's very hard to replicate. Like lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot. It's very hard to do it again.
We'll take it. We'll take it. It's just a fluke. I didn't get too super excited. I did very grounded. I stayed very grounded because I knew that this isn't something that is replicable or repeatable at all. It just is what it is, and let's just keep doing us.
And of course, by the way, those are 2 videos that we didn't put any digital product plugs in for once.
Yeah, no plugs.
The videos that do 500,000 views in 24 hours.
Yeah. You're like, buy our presets for editing space photos on your phone. $800 billion later. No, I don't think they just didn't
make
fit.
sense.
They didn't make sense.
Yep.
So the thing is, you add new followers, and then you hope to give enough value that over time they go and purchase something in the future.
For sure.
So that's where we're going to end it, guys. That's RAWtalk episode 192. Thank you very much for listening. Jared Polin, Photo.com. See ya.
Bye.